Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. From fresh produce to tender cuts of meat, Safeway proudly supports Colorado farms and local small businesses. You support local when you shop at Safeway or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
It's happening again because of strong winds and high fire danger. More Coloradans are expected to lose power today. As a precaution, Xcel Energy says it will shut off power starting at 8 a.m. for around 9,000 households in Larimer and Weld counties.
The utility says they'll work to return power just as soon as the winds die down, but they warn that could take anywhere from a few hours to several days.
This is Xcel's second planned power outage during this unusually warm and dry winter, an acknowledgement that power lines and winter grasses are a bad combination.
The last power outage in mid-December was criticized by state and local leaders after some people were without power for nearly 5 days. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel.
And I'm Bazi Kanani.
Coming up, Governor Jared Polis used his last State of the State address to describe a Colorado for all and make some final nerdy jokes.
A massive wormhole connecting to the abyss with an upside-down version of Colorado.
Then, the predictions about how many people would be forced out of health insurance on Colorado's marketplace were wrong.
I can't be without it. If I want to stay alive, I have to do this.
But staying insured isn't easy. Some customers tell us how they're managing it.
Plus, the Broncos bring the playoffs to Denver tomorrow, and we're checking in with superfans to see how they're getting ready.
Boom, boom, they're gonna put the pieces back. It took 10 years, but here we are.
It's Friday, January 16th. Here's the news in Colorado today.
The governor, he's on his way out. Jared Polis is on his final year in office. And in his State of the State address yesterday, he laid out how he thinks he's done so far and what he hopes to pull off in his last stretch. CPR's Benta Berkland is here to break down all the policy, the promises, and the pop culture references, of which there were many. Hey there, Benta.
Hi, Arla.
So what stood out to you the most in Polis's sort of farewell speech, like a big takeaway?
Well, it definitely did feel final, and you got the sense. This is his 8th and last State of the State address. The tone started out pretty somber. Polis was reflecting on some of the challenges he's faced during his time in office: COVID, catastrophic wildfires, and tragedies. The STEM school shooting, Club Q, recently an anti-Semitic attack on Pearl Street Mall in Boulder. And then he also held a moment of silence for Democratic Senator Faith Winter, and she died in a car crash the day before Thanksgiving. On the policy front, we didn't really hear surprises. He talked about plenty of his accomplishments as he views it, from full-day kindergarten to increasing transit. He also talked about a goal of cutting the state income tax and pushing for things that he's been pushing for a while. He also called out President Trump and D.C. a lot.
Yeah, on that note, the governor did spend a fair amount of time sounding the alarm about President Trump and his impacts on Colorado.
He definitely did. He criticized the president for cutting funding for Colorado and trying to close the climate lab in Boulder, among other things. And Polis painted a pretty grim picture of how he thinks President Trump is governing the nation.
Over the past 12 months, it seems like Washington has often been in it to break it down, to make life harder and less affordable, to make Americans feel more fearful, more belligerent, and more vulnerable.
Now, Polis had some pretty strong words on the topic of healthcare costs. I mean, he said that Americans are getting, and I quote, screwed. Did he make it clear what he intends to do about that?
Well, the high cost of healthcare has been a priority of his for a while, and he called out companies that profit. Big hospitals, pharma, insurance companies, special interests. And Polis said it's time for this country to make a big change.
Call it what you will. A social insurance model, a multi-payer universal health care, Medicare for all, single-payer system with private insurance and care on top. No matter the jargon, no matter what you call it, no matter your policy preference, the outcome is what matters. Health care for everyone at lower costs like every other country has.
That said, Polis was talking about a national approach here, not something that Colorado could do alone.
Polis' speech covered a lot of ground, but when it came to public safety, he did dial down to a very state-specific issue. The governor brought up how Colorado handles people who are found incompetent to stand trial. There's been a lot of controversy over charges being dropped in some very high-profile cases. So can you tell us what he and lawmakers plan to do about that this session?
Yes, the governor pointed to what he sees as a gap in the criminal justice system. So this is when someone is charged with the crime, but then later found to be mentally unfit to stand trial, and then ultimately does not face charges. Polis wants to ensure that these individuals, if they could be a danger to themselves or others, that they're not just released onto the streets. And any policy solution could include more secure facilities where people whose charges are dismissed can be held. They could receive mental health treatment. This has been a long-standing issue in Colorado, the lack of mental health treatment. And for this particular policy, it will be a bipartisan group of lawmakers working on it.
Now, Benta, we can't really talk about Polis' address without also talking about the pop culture references. You know, we got things from Stranger Things to Taylor Swift to...
In The Lord of the Rings, Sam speaks to Frodo, saying there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Colorado, there's so much good, and we keep fighting for more.
Yes, we've gotten used to those pop culture references every year. He even put out a little bingo card where you could try to figure out what he was going to bring up in this speech. But ultimately, Polis said for him, politics is very simple. You say what you're going to do, then you do it. And I thought it was interesting, too, that he also said he's not really worried about his legacy. He said as governor, he's been called many things. The education governor, marijuana governor, tech bro, gay governor, socialist, fascist, communist, capitalist, libertarian. And he said he will keep putting in the work and let others decide the labels.
CPR's public affairs reporter, Benta Birkeland. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Arlo.
Enrollment periods for health insurance are mostly closed now, including for Colorado's Connect for Health marketplace. And we're learning more about the impact of some health insurance price hikes, including whether the dire warnings of hundreds of thousands of people being forced to drop their coverage came true. You may remember that the fight to preserve a government subsidy to help people in the marketplace afford their health plans was the reason for last year's record-long government shutdown. So what happened for those folks who relied on that support? With the subsidy gone, did they still enroll? CPR's Caitlin Kim has been checking in with several families put in a bind by the expiring credit to hear how they're making do. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Bozzy.
It looks like there was not, after all, a big drop in enrollment in the state's health insurance marketplace.
That's right. Now, the numbers are still preliminary, but enrollment this year actually held pretty much steady. It does look like some people managed by shifting to more basic plans, and CPR health reporter John Daly and I checked back in with people we'd been talking to who were facing these skyrocketing premiums, and nearly all of them had found some way to stay insured because it's really a life or death choice.
I can't be without it. If I want to stay alive, I have to do this.
That's Chelsea Baker Hauk. She's a politically unaffiliated Denver resident who runs a consulting business. You know, last year she had a condition that cost nearly $1 million for treatment and medication. This year, without the subsidy, her premiums doubled to almost $500 a month. Now, she and her husband are taking out a home equity loan to pay for it.
Borrowing against their house to afford health care. That sounds like it can get them through for now, but how long can that last?
Yeah, that's something that a lot of families may be wondering. I caught up with one family of 4 where they decided to drop the dad from their plan to save hundreds of dollars a month. They have a small music business, and she was telling me they're just hoping he stays healthy and maybe they can afford to get him covered later. Another couple I talked with told me they'd planned to buy a new car this year, but now that money will go to cover their premiums, which went from around $500 to just over $2,000.
That's a huge increase for them. And yet, clearly, many people are still prioritizing health insurance in their budgets. Is there any help for them on the horizon? What is Congress doing on this issue? Could that tax credit come back?
Right now, any hope for an extension of that tax credit is pinned on a bipartisan group of senators who are trying to reach an agreement on a limited extension of the credit with some changes, including caps and guardrails against fraud. A Republican senator says they're in the red zone. That's a football analogy that I admit I had to look up, which means they're kind of close, but they've been saying that for a while. The biggest hurdle is around abortion. There are already restrictions that keep federal money from covering abortion, but some Republicans want to use this as an opportunity to take it even further. I'll point out that would likely run counter to Colorado law, which requires plans on the exchange to cover abortion.
Lynn, did the people you spoke with hold out much hope that Congress will actually act on this?
Not really. Mostly they're just frustrated. One of the women I talked to, her name is Karen, says this is a problem years in the making.
Well, they've had the last 15 years or more to work on it, and they've done nothing. And so what makes us think that in a year's time anything is going to be different?
I'll also point out President Trump unveiled his own health care concept yesterday, and that's likely to blunt momentum for an actual bipartisan agreement in the Senate.
If the federal government doesn't fix this situation, what about the state?
Well, state lawmakers already put state money into offering some assistance to families that qualify. But compared to the rate hikes, it's sort of a drop in the bucket. For Baker Houck, for instance, it's about an $80 discount. Now, she appreciates the help, but it still didn't stop her from needing that loan to cover the rest.
Still difficult for a lot of people. CPR's Caitlin Kim in Washington, D.C. Thanks, Caitlin.
You're welcome, Bazi.
Are you starting to feel a little something in your stomach? Nerves, excitement, hunger?
They gotta fear us. They gotta fear the Broncos. We ain't fearing nobody.
We're about 24 hours away from kickoff at Mile High Stadium on Saturday afternoon, where the top-seeded Broncos will take on the Buffalo Bills. And superfans like James Chavez, better known as Orange Vader, are fired up.
Feel the force. We're gonna get better. Boom, boom. They're gonna put the pieces back. It took 10 years, but here we are.
10 years. That's how long it's been since the Broncos won a playoff game. And while coaches and players will tell you that they're taking it one game at a time, fans in Colorado have their eyes set on a trip to the Super Bowl. CPR's Tony Gorman spoke with Orange Vader. Tony, can you tell us more about this Mile High legend?
Sure. Chavez, even though he's a Broncos super fan, he looks more like a super villain. He's dressed head to toe in orange pants, orange cape, orange shoulder pads, and his trademark is a bright orange Darth Vader mask.
I'm a Bronco fan. I'm Orange Vader. I'm on their side. This is the power of the orange side. Win or lose, power of the orange side.
Now that is commitment right there.
Yeah, I met up with Chavez at his superfan hideout, the Vader Cave.
Okay. I got some new pictures and stuff, some new emblems I got to hang up. So this friend of mine gave me all this stuff.
It's like a Broncos museum. He's got pictures with players, newspaper clippings, even laundry that belonged to the late Broncos owner, Pat Bowlen, given to him by the family.
This is the last clean load. They cleaned it. His socks, his underwear, believe it?
I'm glad they at least cleaned the underwear.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so Orange Vader isn't the only superfan you got to meet recently. You also hung out with Ralph the limo driver.
That's correct. Yeah, Ralph the limo driver is the alter ego of Ralph Williams Jr.
My friend Theory Smith, he used to be on the radio, 104 The Fan. And Theory had a cool radio show where fans would call in, and all of us guys, we had our nickname. Mine was Bronco Limo Driver.
Williams has been a Broncos fan for half a century, and he said back in the day he used to catch a lot of heat from fans of really good teams like the 49ers and the Cowboys about how the Broncos had never won a Super Bowl.
I said, I'm so confident we're going to win the Super Bowl. I paint my limo, and at that time I had a Mercedes-Benz limo. It was a classic, beautiful car. So I put the car in the shop and had it painted. And when I got there, the media was there. So the star was born.
Williams drove his bright orange limo all the way to San Diego, where the Broncos won their first Super Bowl in 1998. And he took it to Broncos games for decades, although now he's looking for a new set of wheels.
Okay, so Tony, we got costumes, we got an orange limo, and of course, a lot of obsession. Is that what makes Orange Vader and Ralph the limo driver super fans?
Well, I think anyone who dedicates that much time and energy to something is considered a super fan. The two of them have teamed up at rallies and charity events to bring excitement to Broncos country for decades. They've even made music videos.
No way.
Tell them that we all united in orange. Got a whole city of different Broncos around me. Orange County, Bronco maniacs all over the box. And the rest of the country ripping on your boot till they drop. Tell them that we all united in orange.
But what they'll tell you, what sets them apart from regular fans, is that they stick with the Broncos no matter what, no matter how long the slump lasts.
People say, oh, you done lost, so what? They my team, okay? And I would be there cheering.
That's Williams reminiscing on the team's 5 Super Bowl losses.
And to me, you couldn't be called a super fan if you wasn't super with your commitment to your team.
If the Broncos do make it to the final game, are Williams and Chavez planning on going?
Well, that's still up in the air. Both Chavez and Williams are hoping to make it. But being a superfan doesn't get you any kind of discount, even when it comes to actually getting into the games. Chavez said he'll go to Santa Clara with or without tickets. As for Williams,
to be there and my team is playing in the Super Bowl, oh, man, come on, that's priceless. Now, the next best thing is to be there in the limo and at the Super Bowl.
CPR's Tony Gorman. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, man.
Reporting for today's show came from CPR's John Daly, Molly Cruz, and Stephanie Wolf. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday. I'm Bazi Kanani.
And I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org. Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Their pharmacists are here to help you and your family stay protected, offering a wide range of vaccines, including flu shots and COVID-19 boosters. Stop into the store or schedule online at safeway.com/pharmacy.